with, values you grew up with, values we try to teach our kids: honesty, fairness, opportunity, hard work, values that were enshrined in our founding documents.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started again. I don't know how many of you saw that video. So first of all, how fun was that to have Pete? Oh my God. That was so fun and so happy. I don't know how many of you just saw that video, but we started with Minnesota. You know, for me, watching that video, it's like just brought me back to election night, you know, and all of the emotions that I felt that night, the kind of cautious optimism at the beginning, and then the, oh my gosh, maybe this is going to happen, the sigh of relief, and then, you know, really, frankly, a reminder and a restoration of my faith in the American people, that they understood what was happening and they understood what was at stake. And so, you know, really across the country, they rejected MAGA extremism and they voted in favor of mainstream values and of democracy. And I think that there's so much to be grateful for that, and so much also, as we talked about last night, to understand that we have a responsibility to deliver this moment that's been given to us. So there were, of course, you know, some really heartbreaking losses, particularly in our community, in Florida, in Wisconsin, and Ohio. But for the most part, it was an incredible night for Democrats. And as good as it was at the federal level, as we saw there, at the state and local level, it was even better. You know, we flipped seats, or chambers in Minnesota, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and others. And of course, New Deal leader Josh Shapiro, 3 incredibly important secretaries of state races in Minnesota and Arizona with Adrian Fontes, and Jocelyn Benson, who will be here tomorrow, as well as you all. You ran races against extremists. You ran races that were grounded in the values that we all share, and in delivering for the American people. Those values like opportunity, freedom, democracy, and community. So as we celebrate, and we should, or as we breathe a sigh of relief, I think it's super important that we not take the wrong lessons from the midterms. Again, as Chris Coons said last night, this was not a mandate, it was a moment. We need to understand that, that as much as Americans did reject extremism, they also, and they voted for a woman's right to choose. In the candidates they backed and in the initiatives that they passed in California and in Michigan and in Kentucky. But we know in poll after poll heading into the election, Americans see both parties as too extreme. They see Democrats as not being credible on things like the economy and on crime. And frankly, they think that too many Democrats put political correctness and wokeness above common sense. And those are brand issues that we're going to have to deal with. So we can be happy about the election results, and we should be, but we cannot rest on our laurels. We have to have a clear-eyed look at our brand, and we have to build on the success that we were given to build a sustainable governing majority grounded in those values, so that we can continue to fight against extremism and deliver for the American people. So this morning we're going to hear from strategists, from key New Dealers in key battleground states, as well as from Tim Ryan about what happened in the midterms and where we go from here. But I think the other thing we need to remember, as we'll talk about throughout the 2 days, is that election night was only the beginning. New Dealers believe that winning a campaign is not the end. It's actually what matters. What matters most is what comes next, the governing and the service. And it's the day after the election where the hard work begins. And as also we turn to governing, as we just talked about with Secretary, you know, we have an opportunity here to really do great work to rebuild our country post-COVID. We are going to have opportunities to look at infrastructure, to look at childcare and housing and so many issues. And so we have to meet this moment. The American people need it. As we also turn to governing, the other thing on the docket is democracy. We need to continue to work to safeguard democracy. That fight did not end on January 6th. It did not end on November 8th. And so we'll be talking about that over the next 2 days. And in the coming weeks, the New Deal Forum will be releasing a playbook of best practices for state and local elected officials to work on expanding access to the ballot, protecting the integrity of our elections, and increasing civic engagement. So with that, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. This really is a community of amazing doers. And particularly for the elected officials in the room who, as we talked about earlier, stand up and do this every day. You know, we see you, and we know how hard you're working, and I just want to thank you. Thank you for your service. And for those of you who aren't elected officials, but who work in and around government every day to make a difference, thank you, and thanks for being part of this. So with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce the first person who's going to kick off this section we're going to do on the midterms. This is a friend and a colleague for a long time. Many of you know Simon Rosenberg. If you've been paying attention to Simon heading into the election, you will know that he was a beacon of hope for Democrats' chances against what most people thought was not going to happen. He has been getting a lot of well-deserved recognition for his prescience. I think it was Jonathan Alter who said that if Democrats do better on election night, then we expect Simon Rosenberg will turn out to be a genius. So the genius is with us, and we're excited to hear him talk about how he knew that was going to happen and what he thinks it means. So, Simon.